Hey there! Welcome as we experience a bunch of Death Valley National Park. Especially, we're going to be focusing on the back trails, exploring some old mining areas, and we're going to discover some quite amazing history. In March, I joined up with a group from Cal 4-Wheel for 4 days of exploring this incredible place. Now, from my home, there are obviously a couple of route choices, and as you can see on the map, they all take about 8 hours of driving. It's quite a trip. I decided to do a big loop. I would go north to the first open pass over the Sierra, over into Nevada, and then take US 395 south. Going south, we're going to go through the towns of Gardnerville, Walker, Bridgeport, Levine, Mammoth, Lakes Bishop, Big Pine, Independence, Lone Pine, and then get California Highway 190 through Panamint Springs and on to Stovepipe Wells. Stovepipe Wells is the home base for this event. So that's the beginning of our trip to Death Valley. We're going to go through some of the historic Gold Rush foothill towns. Downtown San Andreas, the big metropolis. Oop, we blinked, that's it. On the hill, we're taking just a little side route through this town. Well, I wasn't planning on doing any snow wheeling. I'm at about the 6,800 foot level, headed toward Kit Carson Pass, and I see so much snow up here. I just thought I'd take a little break and do some snow wheeling and share it with you. Let's see if we can make it. We made it! Didn't get stuck. Didn't have to get out the winch or anything. Whew! Awesome. Well, let's get back in the Jeep and make it the rest of the way. Heading to Death Valley. Oh, by the way, not germane to our trip, but it's not every day you get to see your odometer go over 100,000 miles, so here we go. Well, we must be on the right road. And here we are, Death Valley National Park. Well, that's going to be my campsite. Just pulled in, it's about 6 o'clock. And we need to get everything set up. But first I have to go figure out where I'm supposed to pay. A meetup time for the various trail groups was set for fairly early. My group was scheduled to leave the gathering point at 8 a.m. This is the first day, and my plan is to join the group going to the infamous Barker Ranch. As the map shows, we have a really big circle ahead of us this day. The route is rated medium hard, because we'll be going over a more difficult pass. This pass, you'll see, is not terribly long and it's not terribly hard, but it is a bit more difficult than average, and it will take a high clearance four-wheel drive vehicle, but you'll be seeing it for yourself. Anywhere you go in Death Valley involves highway miles, lots of highway miles. But I didn't mind, because mostly they're straight roads. It's a great way to get a feel for the huge expanse of this park. As we drove across the bleak landscape, I was pondering what hardships the prospectors and those traveling west faced, and what hardships the native people had, because there were groups of native people that lived in this valley, at least at times. How they dealt with making lives and families and communities in such conditions is beyond me. By By the way, this is all terrible washboard road. Even though we did air down, it helped some, but it took its toll on my light bar. Shook it right off its mount. Good old bubblegum baling wire and, of course, zip ties. I wish that we'd had time to stop at every site that looked interesting, but we just didn't have that time. Mines in these areas may have pinpointed gold or silver, borax, or talc. Borax is often called white gold. It was the most commercially successful mineral found in this area. They used it for everything from cleaning agents to preserving meat, famously hauled out of the valley in the 1880s by the legendary 20 mule team wagons. Another thing prospectors looked for was gold and silver. California gold rush sparked early expeditions, and there were some strikes, but they were generally short-lived. Prospectors also explored and occasionally mined for copper, lead, zinc, antimony, and tungsten, and surprisingly talc. Talc was a big one. The southern part of Death Valley National Park became a major source of high-grade talc. Now, as for me, I had only heard of it in baby powder, like this picture shows, but demand surged during World War II. Talc is used for all sorts of things. It's used for manufacturing electrical insulators. It's used in cosmetics. In the early 1980s, cancerous asbestos was found in many deposits of talc, and so there were cautions, and now today talc is still used, but they're very careful to make sure it is not associated with any asbestos. And so we come to this open pit area. It was the Warm Springs mine, or Grantham talc mine, and here's some interesting history, and I find this kind of thing fascinating. According to one source I read, Louise Grantham discovered this deposit. Yeah, a woman prospector in the early 1900s. But then I discovered that isn't quite the whole story. Apparently, Louise did come to Death Valley in the 1920s, but it wasn't to prospect. It was to find her father, who she hadn't heard from for a few years, and he himself was the prospector. Well, Louise was quite a gambler, and apparently Ms. Grantham didn't discover this mine, but she did win it, and other mines in poker games. Backed up, of course, by her six-shooter. She even went toe-to-toe with the National Park Service and was allowed to continue operating her mines until the 1980s. Now we come to what is called the geologist's cabin. It was built around 1930, obviously a stone cabin. Today it is a first-come, first-served place that travelers can stay for the night. It's complete with a concrete floor, a place you can spread out your sleeping bag, a fireplace, nearby spring. Apparently nobody knows for sure how the stone cabin came to be tagged with the geologist moniker. The person who built it originally was a prospector. Now we're heading toward Mengel Pass, named after a prospector who has a grave marker in his honor at the top of the pass. This pass is separating the Panamint Valley from the Butte Valley. Only high-clearance 4x4 rigs should be on this route. The website Dangerous Roads includes Mengel Pass on its list of dangerous places, and I'm not really sure why. I don't feel like it's dangerous. It's challenging, of course. Well, it would be dangerous if you got stuck and you were alone, without water or any way to call for help. One thing that we haven't mentioned is there's very little cell service in Death Valley. Probably best to buddy up if you're going to go exploring. And bring water. Other safety measures would include leaving your trail plans with the ranger stations and making sure you have satellite communication, some sort of satellite communication capable device with plenty of battery power. And did I mention plenty of water? That should go without saying. More than one tourist has gotten stranded in these parts, and their remains weren't found until life was long gone.
Very peaceful today. Birds are singing. Been burned down, but wasn't so peaceful in 1969 when Charles Manson and his followers were hanging out here. Yep, that's the Barker Ranch where Charles Manson was hanging out.
Our final stop on today's loop is the Barker Ranch.
Beautiful view from up here.
This is where the notorious Charles Manson gang, or Charles Manson group, was holed up after their, well, it's such a cliche to say murderous rampage, but that's exactly what it was. You can read any history of the group and the weirdness just sort of overwhelms you. You can read the story of the group online. What I found most remarkable was that this ranch house, even though it was burned down a few years ago, is obviously in such an oasis-like area. This pleasant afternoon we were here, there was a breeze blowing in the cottonwood trees, there was some green grass around, birds were singing. What a stark contrast to the evilness that the very name Charles Manson evokes. Well, our tour is over. It's time to head back to camp. We do have miles to go before we return. First down a scenic desert box canyon, and then we'll be going up the Panamint Valley and on to Stovepipe Wells and back to our campground. Well, the most interesting thing once we left the Barker Ranch was stopping and making a new friend. Hey folks, meet George, one of the many descendants of escaped donkeys from the prospecting days. As I mentioned earlier, this video is part 1. I'll be making parts 2 through 4, covering more interesting sights from the park, and I'll be throwing in more historical information as we go along.
Hey, check this out! This is the life! Thank you for watching, Ken, the Jeep Guy. Come back again, and be sure to like and subscribe.